Hello everyone, this is Allen Le Vie, call sign KH2UN, here with another edition of Diet Soda, where we explore the lighter, personal side of Summits on the Air program that combines amateur radio, summit seekers, and chasers. My special guest today is Guy Hamblin, call sign N7UN. Guy is a two-time SOTA mountain goat with over 2,300 activation points, encompassing more than 450 activations and 339 of those being unique summits. All of that across 23 associations in 68 regions. For anyone new to the Summits on the Air program, it may be easy to take for granted that this part of ham radio has only been active in North America for about 15 years. Guy Hamblin has always enjoyed hiking, being in the outdoors, and enjoyed ham radio operating from wilderness locations or along the trails many years before it was even cool. His ham radio career covers over 60 years, and the love of outdoors, fortunately for us, led him to stumble across Summits on the Air in the mid-2000s. What you may not know is that Guy was instrumental in standing up SOTA for North America. Moreover, he helped with the technical side of creating over 20 associations and most of the W7 state associations. He was a key member of the SOTA management team for many years and earned a coveted Sherpa Award in 2014 for his contributions to the radio sport program. Today, Guy will give us insights to what it took to get SOTA started in the U.S., how he has used goals to keep himself motivated and interested in SOTA, and some pro tips to help you and others get out and explore this great part of the ham radio hobby. Without further ado, let's open this can of Diet Soda and enjoy some time with our friend Guy N7UN.
I actually got involved in ham radio as a teenager. Grew up in southern Idaho, as I mentioned previously, and was always interested in electronics. You know, I had this kind of magnetic pull to the mysteriousness of electronics per se. And of course, that was all during the vacuum tube era, you know, in the mid-60s. And I would hang out I kind of introduced myself to the local TV repair shop and kind of hang out and sweep floors. And in where I grew up, there was this older gentleman, and I helped him. You know, TVs were heavy back then, so I was kind of his heavy lifter. And then he introduced me to, you know, things around the shop. So I got the fun of checking tubes and I tell people I was just attracted to the smells of
Can you still?
Oh yeah,
Smell,
yeah, of electronics.
Yeah.
And one day he says, "Hey, come here, Guy. I want to show you something in the back room." And I walked in, and there was his ham shack. And so here was floor to ceiling racks of equipment, and he went down the line turning on switches, and you know, the deep thump of a big transformer coming online, and the dials lighting up and waving, and all of that just completely mesmerized me.
Yeah, pre-boat anchors, that was the actual boats back then?
Yes. You know, and it was just amazing. So he kind of got me started in ham radio. I mean, piqued my interest. He was my early mentor. I got licensed, I think, when I was 15. And back then, Morse code was a requirement. You got your novice license, and you had 1 year to upgrade, or you lose your license. And so for the most part, everybody went to 13 words a minute and the general class license. Which just kind of like today opens up all of ham radio for the most part. And so I was active during high school, and equipment was easy because after World War II, there was just a ton of surplus equipment. And I had a real good buddy in high school who also became a ham at the same time. And so we set up these makeshift antennas in our backyards. You know, it's unbelievable when I think back of what we were doing. You know, easy way to tell resonance of an antenna. You would just kind of tune for maximum output. And we would Morse code with each other almost every night. And my mother, and it was all straight key because there was no electronic keyers. You had, the early mechanical bugs, but for a 15 or 16-year-old, they were way too expensive. And so we was straight key, and my mother used to get so upset. She says, "Quit that clickety clacketing! You're keeping the whole house awake." Yeah, my first call sign as a novice was KN7YYK. I affectionately still remember. I think I still have that old license somewhere. But anyway, you upgrade, and then I went to. I was pretty active during high school, and then I went to college at Oregon State and discovered girls and fun and the class workload. It really didn't do much during college. Uh, and then, got out, went into service for a couple of years, fell back into ham radio at a company I was working at in in Salem, Oregon, and they were a manufacturer of avionics equipment, particularly navigation equipment for the airline industry. And so the place was full of hams. They got me back into ham radio, and this was the mid '80s. At any rate, one day I was, this was the 88 or 89, UPS asked me, says, "Well, how would you like to come work at our IT headquarters?" Uh, and I said, "Okay, where's that?" And they said, "New Jersey." And I said, "Okay, where's that?" And, being a West Coast boy, I had no idea about what it was like to be in the East Coast. But anyway, I moved back to the East Coast and was in New Jersey for 25 years with UPS doing product development. And I eventually retired from UPS in 2011, 2012. I moved back to the Pacific Northwest, which was kind of my home. But I actually thoroughly enjoyed living back east. So that, in the 90s, had gotten back into ham radio pretty heavily, doing a lot of VHF, UHF. And then with the advent of the Northern California DX Club and the Wayne Burdick N6KR, who later went on to form Elecraft, but they were doing the NorCal series of portable radios, and they're all CW, and they were both transmit and receive in one little unit, and they were called the I got the NorCal 40, which is a 40 meter, and it was a sign of the size of just a 4x4 inch radio, 5 watts, battery powered, great receiver, uh, and very backpackable. And the whole key was to take it. He designed it just so he could take it backpacking, and it became immensely popular. And that kind of catalyzed the portable QRP community within the ham radio. Um, and so I was taking that out often. Um, this was the late 90s, and just operating portable, and it's surprising. People were discovering how effective 5 watts can be, on the trail, and how well the receivers work when you were away from a big city, with no noise floor. And got a lot of people, a lot of guys going portable was just sitting at a picnic table, which was fine. And there were others kind of like me who would hike with mine, and then, activate in the evenings from some shelter along the Appalachian Trail. And in about the 2000 period, there was a fairly successful East Coast QRP club called the Polar Bears. And you may have heard of them or not. And their whole goal was to be a member of the Polar Bear. You had to activate from the Appalachian Trail, which was kind of cool. So that got everybody out on the Appalachian Trail and started this whole movement forward of activating on mountaintops, because a good part of the Appalachian Trail is on the crests all the way from Atlanta up through New England. And so I started activating a lot in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York, up into New England area, so Vermont and New Hampshire. And that really got me out into places that I would never, ever visit.
Yeah.
If it
Guy,
weren't.
growing up, were you an outdoorsy guy?
Yes. Yeah.
So hiking just kind of always been in the blood?
Yes. I would hike to go really trout fishing. In southern Idaho, that was, just an amazing, and I got really active with trout fishing. And then Boy Scouts would get you, into these great fishing lakes. And so that was more hiking. So I was always an outdoors hiking person. And then I got into mountain biking and then mountain climbing when, doing a lot of the 16 peaks along the Cascades and in Colorado with the Mazamas here in the Portland area. And so, yeah, I was always an outdoors hiking person. So it was kind of just natural for me. How about yourself?
I always, I was never attracted to the video games. Being an '80s kid, if it was, well, growing up in Washington, I was outside. If it was raining, doesn't matter. I was out playing in the woods always. And then I think it was probably teenager. I finally got up on an actual mountain in the Southern Olympics.
Oh yeah.
And just that perspective, I've always just loved being on top and looking around and looking at the world from a different perspective, and that kind of set the hook. And did right after high school, went up with a friend of mine up to the Sawtooth area in Stanley, Idaho. And did a bunch of hiking around there. And again, it's kind of just further set that hook as far as the love of the outdoors and just being away and looking, just that timeless part of when in our busy lives in the city. Like you can get up there and just realize those mountains have been there for eons, and they don't care what we do day to day. And I don't know, to me, it's very grounding. Resets myself.
Yeah, I know. I understand exactly what you're saying. Just to sit on a ledge and look out over the terrain, it's a world apart. Unless you kind of discover that, it's hard to understand what SOTA operations are all about. Well, at any rate, I was doing a lot of hiking, and so the mountain top aspect of Summits on the Air was just kind of a logical next step, especially after the polar bear QRP community. And it's still active, but it's not anything like it was back then. There was just a crazy bunch of guys, and we would have so much fun. I don't know if you've heard of the Colorado 14er event.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Yeah, K0NR, Bob Witt and his wife,
Yeah.
would always put on the 14er event, and he'd been doing it for years and years, and it was always a VHF FM transceiver, and they would hike to some prominent 14er and make a bunch of contacts and try to get people interested. And so I was always kind of attracted. Never had done a 14er before. And in the polar bear group, I had met one of my good buddies now, Steve, WG0AT, which you probably met when you were in Colorado Springs.
Yeah,
and
Steve's great.
But anyway, he was an active polar bear participant. And I would trade emails, and I said, hey, I really want to come out and do this Colorado 14er event and activate it, though, with HF on a mountaintop. And Steve said, let's go. Well, Steve, he just anything that looks like fun, he's game.
That's great.
And he had the goats by then. It's become kind of famous, within that community. And so we came out and did a 14er event and activated Uncompadre, which you may know. Just a classic 14er. The goal was to make some out-of-state 14er contacts on HF. So we got with Brian N7UN, who you may know, and he was a mountain climber. So he climbed Mount Whitney, and we orchestrated a 14er, either 20 or 40 meter contact on HF.
Yeah, and anyone who's watching this who hasn't been to 14,000 feet for more than a few minutes, I've only done a couple when I was in Colorado Springs, and the exponential difficulty above 12,000 that it gets. I remember somebody teaching me, pace yourself in breaths. So maybe you're taking 30 steps and 10 breaths, and then eventually it's 10 steps and 30 breaths. As you get higher and higher, you feel like you have boat anchors on your legs at some point, and then trying to operate at that. Sometimes it's you're just fatigued at a lower altitude, and it's hard to comprehend CW. It's further complicated at a higher altitude with that lack of oxygen.
Yeah, it's a whole nother being oxygen deprived is a whole nother world, for QRP operations. I was lucky. I had zero problems with the elevation, with the altitude. We made contact with Brian N7UN on HF to HF, and we kind of think that was one of the very first 14er to 14er out of state HF contacts on CW, and Steve captured it all on video, and kind of that was pre-SOTA. This was 2007. And SOTA, as you know, started in Great Britain, 2002, 2003. And there was a Scot, was an expatriate, and was working for either IBM or something in New York. And he brought SOTA to North America and started with a starter set of summits, 50 or so, in New York. And that kind of got things, that was kind of the first start of SOTA. And that was in 2007. And nothing really happened until another friend of mine, KT, it was GM1YMI was his call. And it was another guy, KTYTF, discovered the USGS data set. And we found a guy out of Colorado, John Kirk, who runs, who has kind of a similar operation called to Peak Baggers. I don't know if you.
Okay. Yeah, I've looked at their website before.
And he happened to be an ex-USGS employee, so knew how to get the data. I went to the USGS, and if you know anything about data communications, large database systems always have what they call a data dictionary, which is a dictionary about the data. Well, I downloaded their data dictionary, and it was 112 pages long, and it was all cryptic. So you needed a data dictionary to the data dictionary. And I called them. They said, well, what is it that you want? And at any rate, it was a nightmare trying to work with so we discovered John Kirk, and he says, oh yeah, no problem. I'll get you that data. And so we started, compensating John Kirk for the data. It was just relatively inexpensive for what we got. I think we paid generally $10 1,000 for summit information, and it was everything we could possibly want. including the prominence information, lat longs, all that stuff. The lat longs associated with the saddle, which we call the col, COL, and it, so and then I wrote about, and John Kirk provided to us in a CSV format, so it was data friendly to us, and so I wrote a bunch of Python scripts to scrub that data, so I could download it then into Excel spreadsheets, and it was as complete as you could possibly get.
And again, this was 2007 to 2009 timeframe?
Yes. And
just, it had to have been a huge undertaking. Once individually they are what they are, but I mean, the data set, like you said.
Yeah, well, we would, and at that time I was working with the SOTA MT guys, and we were, trying to decide how to set up North America. They said, well, North America should be just one association, and then, each state could be a region. And I said, no, guys, it won't work. And they said, well, why not? And I said, well, Colorado alone has almost 3,000 peaks. And he says the Pacific Northwest in total, all of the W7, is close to 15,000 peaks. Colorado or California, by itself is 3,000 peaks. And, and they finally got it. And so we agreed to set up associations by state. My friend K2YTF did W1, and then I started providing data sets to other interested people. So like N4EX Rich undertook North Carolina, South Carolina. He took the data set and ran with it, and which was great. Then we had KD5KC Mike out of W5, who brought online Texas, and then expand and brought online New Mexico, and then expanded it into Oklahoma and Missouri. And then I provided data to W7 Alpha, which is Arizona, and the guys there kind of ran with it. And so there's two regions, Arizona East, Arizona West, and they're still intact. But they kind of established the banding for all our Arizona. So then when we came back in with 1,700 new peaks, we used, they used the existing banding, and that was WA7JTM, who's the association manager, who's still real active within SOTA. But they got real lucky because nobody questioned the banding. And so that's why, that's the points banding within the SOTA system.
Right.
And so nobody really questioned why they had 40% of their peaks were all 10 pointers, which was really lucky for them.
Yeah.
And so then I said,
should it be on a bell curve?
Yes, the design goal, my design goal was a bell curve, so a normal distribution. And the goal was 10% of the peaks should be 1-pointers and 10% of the peaks should be 10-pointers. But I told Steve at the time, I said, well, here's your chance, because I'm going to do the data for Colorado, Whiskey Zero Charlie, and bring up this association. If you want to be association manager, just let me know. And so Steve was the association manager. I kind of arm twisted him into that. He was the association manager for the first 3 or 4 years. And Colorado took off because everybody was outdoors. And a lot of the hams understood.
Yeah, a lot of people outside, for sure. Very outdoor, active community.
Yeah, and all the hams, and they kind of got it, and so it went crazy. And then I started migrating. Go ahead.
Sorry, how many associations have you had your hands on to help kind of stand up? Do you have a count?
At least 20. Yeah, the thing about the SOTA management team out of Great Britain is they had some folks that have been with the program from the beginning, and they're still there today. So, like for instance, Andy MM0FMF, in his real-time job, he's a database guy. And over the years, people have come in and come out of the SOTA program, but for the most part, it's top-notch industry leading experts that have brought best practices into the SOTA world. Right now, a lot of the web interfaces is done very professionally by VK3ARR. That's his job for Red Hat. And he knows what's going on in the industry, and since he lives in Australia, but travels a lot into Japan, he was kind of my co-creator for the Japanese SOTA Association, and was instrumental in kind of selling SOTA to the Japanese hams. Which I don't know if you know much about the Japanese ham community, but there's almost 750,000 Japanese hams alone.
I was trying to chase some last night, 15 meters and 20 meters amongst the contest that was going on last night. Yeah, I could just barely hear them. I couldn't work any, but I see them on in the evenings on the air all the time.
And as you may know too, the Japanese, they're outdoors people. They all hike. So I firmly believe that over a period of time, the Japan associations will become some of the largest numbers of activators, which is already starting to play out. You see huge activity within the Japanese community. Much of the SOTA administration is still by a core group of foundation people who have been with the program for decades now, some from the beginning, and they just bring a lot of practicality and say, well, that's all good and fine, Guy, but we learned with our dealings with Italy that won't work. But are there things, I know one of your pre-questions are there things that SOTA could do to improve? Certainly. I think much of the major world expansion is now pretty much complete. I haven't looked at India to know if there's what's going on in India, but for the most part, the large population countries are on board.
What about the smaller? I was looking at your QRZ site. You seem to like the warmer climates, Caribbean and those areas there, and you've done several DX expeditions down there, including the one I saw you passed on a video with the mini DX expedition to Barbados, and what was the other one?
Grenada, St. Lucia.
Yeah, so some great videos that were there. Have most of those areas that have qualifying peaks, are they all in the system?
They do, although there's not much of an active ham communities, so it's people coming in.
So vacation destinations, right. Similar to what I've seen in Hawaii. There's a few active folks, but the folks that go out there for the island, they're dragging their wife, dragging their radio, probably to their wife or significant other chagrin, to really, you have to bring the radio to Hawaii with you. Yeah, people are expecting us to do a SOTA activation, right? So it's fun. I would love to do that again.
K6EL was always interested in Hawaii, and he says, come on, Guy, let's do Hawaii. I want to go vacation in Hawaii. And so
great excuse, yeah.
We pulled together, I don't know, I think Hawaii overall has maybe 100 summits spread over 5 islands or something. And we pulled that together, and that was kind of fun.
Yeah, I don't think I shared this, but Elliot, he came out for the grand opening, September of 2013, when we stood up Hawaii, and my first activation was a summit to summit with him on a neighboring peak. So
Yeah,
Was that on
great to be able
Oahu?
to. Yes,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
he was a great help.
Yeah, LA is a lot of fun. I mean, he's another guy that kind of brings some gravitas to the SOTA community and the SOTA management team, particularly on the American experience. But and I worked very closely when I was working with the SOTA MT. Elliot and I were kind of joined at the hip. Um, but anyway, let's see. I think I traveled to Hawaii on vacation when I was still living back east. I was getting rid of frequent flyer miles, so I think I spent 10 days activating in Hawaii.
I happened to. You shared your some Flickr photos,
Yeah.
and you had a link to my blog of the highest point on Oahu, Ka'ala. You got to go activate that one?
Yes. Haleakala?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
I think it's called.
Ka'ala is the highest point on the
Okay.
western side of Oahu.
Yeah. And I think I did a bunch of pictures on Haleakala. One fun story there, like most of us, I carry my cell phone around in one of my pants pockets. And uh, I butt dialed a friend of mine back east, and I didn't know it. That was W1PID, Jim Cluid. And well, I'll tell you this side story. Jim Cluid, W1PID, and N1FJ, Frandy Johnson, they were huge early adopters of SOTA in New England. And they even called themselves the SOTA jerks. They were great guys, fun loving. Let's go activate some SOTA peaks. Come up and we'll drink some beers and then for breakfast and then go activate. But anyway, I had butt dialed Jim W1PID from the top of Haleakala, and didn't realize it. I looked at my phone and I saw recent activity, and I saw W1PID, and didn't realize it was my outgoing call. I thought Jim was calling me, so I called him back and he says, "Yes, Guy, what's up?" And I go, "Did you call me?" And he says, "No." And he says, "Where are you?" And I says, "Well, I'm on 10,000 feet on Red Hill, Mount Haleakala, doing a SOTA activation." He says, "Oh, really?" He says, "What band are you on?" And I says, "Well, I'm on 15 meters." And he says, "Well, let me go upstairs to my ham shack and see if I can hear you." And we had a coordinated frequency. He gave me a call. I heard him 5.5. And I came back to him, told him 5.5, and he says, "Oh yeah, you're 5.5 here too. Thanks for the QRP contact, 73." And and I couldn't believe it. And we traded emails afterwards. Said, it was the most bizarre thing we've ever, and least unexpected. But it goes to show you, how well QRP 5 watts or 7 watts works.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, 5 watts in a wire is just amazing where you can reach.
Especially like we said earlier, you get into a location where there's no noise. You can hear just about anything. But anyway, and then I spent other days, other hiking on Maui, and then spent quite a bit of time on Oahu, doing a lot of the summits there. Just thoroughly enjoyed it. It was a wintertime break. And same thing was true with all of my trips in the Caribbean. They were all wintertime breaks. So Steve, WG0AT, was doing promotional media work for Buddy Pole at that time. And they were, Chris Drummond, Buddy Pole, was usually going 2 to 3 weeks before the Orlando Ham Fest, which is mid-February. He'd go vacation into the Caribbean. And we said, well, let's make this kind of a fun event, turn it into a ham radio thing. And Steve invited me. He says, "You got to come along. This is going to be great fun." And so we activated over 3 or 4 years a bunch of islands in the Caribbean. And it wasn't SOTA at that time, but it was all beach activation. So it was using buddy poles, and Steve would videotape it and then process it into a YouTube video as a marketing campaign for buddy pole. But we were always on the beach.
Yeah, some rough living there, right? It looks great. And then from there, like North, South America, Europe, Africa, I'm sure you could work just about everywhere.
Yeah, you come up on the north side of an island sitting, 10 feet from salt water, and Europe would, and there's a RF concept called the saltwater amplifier, because the salt water reflects almost without loss radio waves. And so you don't have, your ground losses are almost zero. And so you're seeing a general QRP 5-watt signal sounds like 50 watts, a 10 dB improvement. And so we would pound into Europe, just thoroughly have a great time. And his dad, Bud Drummond, who really started the buddy pole business, and Bud is W3BF, and just a real charismatic guy, just fun loving, and so we would have a lot of fun. A lot of fun.
Yeah. Why would you have it any other way?
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
I mean, each day was generally planned around a beach operation, 2 or 3 hours, but we would set up a number of antennas at the villa, at the place where we were staying, and work DX all night long. And we were the DX, actually. Most of the buddy pole was finished. We stopped doing it 2014, 2015, I think. And I was getting ready to, I had been retired by then, but I got caught up in the housing crisis, 2010. So really wasn't able to sell my house in New England, in New Jersey especially. I had wanted to move back to the West Coast, but was kind of caught. And so I was vacationing, doing SOTA stuff, going to Europe, spending a lot of time traveling, getting rid of frequent flyer miles.
Yeah, something I just noticed on the SOTA database, as they continue to make improvements, the mapping part of that, I was able to look at your contributions to activating, and now you can look at all the map to see where the cluster of where you've been.
Oh.
I need to catch up. You have a lot more dots on the map than I do. But I did see some in Central Europe. So where do you remember some of those activations?
Oh, yeah. That was 2015. I was still part of the SOTA management team. And the guys my friends in Great Britain says, hey, come over to Friedrichshafen Hamfest in southern Germany, in the town of Friedrichshafen. And I said, sounds like a great adventure to me.
Yeah.
And spent 2 weeks, flew into Zurich, Switzerland, met a real good friend, HB9DST, who's a huge SOTA activator. He's activated all of the regions and all of the province. I think they call them provinces, equivalent of our counties in Switzerland, by mass transit, which is just amazing to me. But I mean, here you are right in the middle of the Swiss Alps, the Austrian Alps, the southern German Alps, and Friedrichshafen is the city itself. Friedrichshafen is kind of a destination resort area for Germany, and it was amazing. So HB9DST and we drove over, activated on the way to Friedrichshafen, met up with a bunch of the German folks, the Great Brit, met some Yugoslavian guys, met some Austrian guys, and they all were very eager to take me activating, which was just amazing, because some of the southern Germany peaks I would never ever find on my own. It's just impossible. But anyway, and then we went into Austria and did some of those high mountain communities, where the cows are all wearing cowbells, and so you're serenaded to that bell sound all over, and
That sounds amazing.
oh, it was fun. It was just a bunch of great folks, all SOTA connected, so we kind of had that familiarity, and that took me through 5 or 6 associations in Europe, which I thoroughly enjoyed. I really ought to get over to Great Britain sometime and activate there. So that takes us up through 2016. I moved back to the Pacific Northwest spring of 2016. Did the NPOTA act? Spent a lot of time with W6PNG doing NPOTA. In 2016, 2017, was doing still a lot of SOTA, and then I went inactive on SOTA for a couple of years. I got caught up in volunteer work with Washington Trails Association.
Okay. And I was going to ask you about that because I did notice on your, one of the graphs in the SOTA database, I did see a little gap there. So
yeah, I was
doing some trail work,
doing a lot of trail work. And thoroughly enjoying it. It was a great community of people. It was a great way to get involved and active in hiking again in the Pacific Northwest. And I thoroughly enjoyed the work. I liked the people, but I kind of went in head over heels and was doing it at the exclusion of too much else in my life. And so I just said, well, let's rebalance. So now I'm back into SOTA, pretty much.
Okay. Well, welcome back. Well, I'm glad you're back in it. You've done a lot. You've helped a ton with the association stand-up, the database side. I reached out to Steve, WG0AT, if he had any funny stories. And he mentioned a summit. It was a close encounter, or shall we say a goat encounter. I think you were debuting the KX2 possibly, where I don't know if it was Peanut or where they backed up and maybe deposited some goat berries on top of your case.
Yeah. Yeah, christened. We call it christened.
Christened with the lucky goat berries.
Yeah, I forget Steve has a video of it. We were hiking into this 14er. I forget which 14er it was. I mean, it was kind of one of the quote unquote easier ones where you would drive to 12,000 feet and then hike the last 2,000.
Yeah.
And it's a
ridge
top hike, and like as you would expect, most 14ers, they're windy. So one of your challenges is to get out of the wind. And there was an old mining shack up there. And we were all hunkered down behind the mining shack to get out of the wind. And of course, the goats, being much smarter than we are, said, no way. Says, this is our space. And so we were sharing the space with the goats. And at that time, Rooster was not a small goat. He was 250 pounds. And,
wow.
And
I wouldn't have said he's over 150,
And, yeah, the Peanut
big
was 150. Rooster was a big boy. He was every bit of 36 to 40 inches high, and at the shoulders, and of course they're all muscle, and so he had no problem with my 150-pound body. He says, don't even think about taking this space. So I was set up, had everything on the ground, kind of sitting, activating, and Peanut just let go.
When you gotta go, you gotta go.
Well, it's outdoors. Everything's a bathroom.
Yeah.
And Steve and I looked at each other, and it was the funniest thing. We just couldn't believe it. And he says, well, I said, Steve, this has got to be part of the video.
Yeah. And it made the cut.
Yep, made the cut. And and it to this day becomes, really one of the great stories of how Pina christened my KX. I think, yeah, it might have been the KX2 or the KX3. Well, and then we did some beta testing with the early KX2, and all the beta.
How do you find yourself in the right place at the right time to go play radio and play with new toys?
Well, when Steve, was doing some promotional work for Elecraft, and he just said, "Hey, I can get some." You can hear Steve right now. Hey, so excited! He says, "I can get some beta KX2s. Let's go play radio." He says, "Tell me when, where," and I'm there.
Yeah, right.
So anyway,
That's
I think we went and played KX2 beta testing for a while in Colorado, and then the beta units we had to send back to Elecraft. But I got in return, I bought, you get a chance to buy a KX2 from the Elecraft folks just as a thank you. So I got number 73 from the Elecraft folks.
7.3. That's great.
on the KX2, and they're just great portable rigs. I agree with you. There's, and living back east, I had the early mountaintop radios. Steve KD1JV, who was the designer of the early mountaintop, he was in my backyard. I was friends with him. I'd see him at Hamfest and or at Dayton, and we would. And he was a real active trail hiker. I mean, real active. Had done the AT a couple of times, and really designed those radios so he could get on the air from the trail. But anyway, I built up a couple of those, and I still have them. I mean, they're great little radios. They work fine.
Yeah. 9 volts. Super trail friendly.
Yeah, 4 watts is all you need. Just put up a decent antenna, and gosh, you can. I still take mine out every so often just to show people, what we were using 20 years ago, and it was just, and how well it works.
Just a ton of memories over the years, with SOTA and just playing ham radio before it was SOTA. Any of those your favorite? Any of those jump out other than Peanut christening radios?
Well, people often ask me, why are you so captivated by SOTA? And I said, well, I like the outdoors. I like ham radio. So it gives me a chance to do both. But SOTA and the Peaks list has really taken me into some summits that I would probably never, ever hike if it weren't for SOTA.
Yeah, for sure.
And of particular interest to me, there's a whole subset of SOTA peaks that are old fire tower lookouts. And the fire tower lookouts were there in the 1920s, 30s, and 40s. A lot of them were decommissioned in the 50s. But those sites were chosen because they have great views.
Yeah, I've got one right here in Helena, if you're ever in the area, Casey Peak. One of my favorite photos is a snapshot of the summit with the stone lower half of it still there. The rest of it's been taken down. But when I posted that picture, I got somebody hit me up on, I think, the SOTA database. Like, there's a whole group of people that are very specific about chasing down old fire lookouts and the history there. So, yeah, there's a great one here if you want to come check it out.
Well, Montana has probably hundreds. The statistics for Washington during the heyday, 40s, early 50s, there were 450 active fire lookouts. 90 of those have been preserved and exist today. The other, you can hike into some of those old lookout sites. Sometimes you can see remnants of what was there. In some cases, it might be nothing more than the footings and the wire guy lines that they would use to keep the fire tower in place. In some instances, the trees have grown back, and you wouldn't even know. And a lot of times it's still a wide open view, and it's just absolutely magnificent. Yeah, and there are subsets of people who want to make ham contacts on fire lookout, old fire lookout sites. So I've been doing a lot of that just to get me to places that I probably wouldn't normally go. And then along with SOTA, my SOTA goals, I've got 350 unique summits. So that means summits that I've been to at least once. And I'd like to work on more uniques, get to places that I haven't been, as opposed to continually go to my old favorites. And then that's my other goal. That'll probably take 3 years to get to 500 uniques. My other goals are within SOTA are to get over 10,000 activator QSOs.
You're getting close.
I'm getting close.
Looked,
yeah.
You're at almost 9,900.
Yeah.
So you need to shoot for 20,000. I mean, you're almost there.
Well, you look at some of the stats in the W. We've got some guys that are amazing. The KX, a lot of the Colorado guys, KN0R, KX0R, George, they're out all the time.
I think he lives on the mountain.
Yeah.
He's up there all the
time. 150 to 200 activations a year. So yeah, you're right.
I often work him summit to summit.
Yep.
Did my last activation, they had him, and he was a pro. And somebody stepped on me, and he stepped in and said, stand by, and we were able to finish it. He's definitely professional, and I always love to get him in the log.
Yeah, he's, and they're all, I've hiked with him on some Colorado 14ers. I mean, they're just all amazing people in their own right. Great stories to tell. So those are kind of some of my SOTA goals, for this year anyway. I find it helpful to set a goal and then stay focused. I'm going to attend the W7O camp out again. That's going to be in July in Southern Oregon, and that's going to be fun.
What is your go-to radio, or do you like to change it up? Do you have your kit that you take on the trail? Is it pretty standard, or do you change it up?
I do change it up depending upon where I'm going. I did buy one of the new KH1s, just because I fear of missing out, FOMO.
And I'm sure you needed another radio, right?
But my other goal this year is, I've always been a CW guy almost all my life. I mean, sideband is okay. I mean, I can find my mic. I do know how to plug it in. Sometimes I forget how to configure it on the radio.
Guy, I think I vaguely remember, I think we've had one sideband contact, but I did look up your contacts as far as SOTA contributions, 90% CW.
Yeah.
So yeah, apparently you leave the mic at home often.
Yeah, I'll have a portable mic with me just in case, but I'm almost all CW.
What's about this United States SOTA Amateur Radio Club called NS0TA?
I was it was 2011. I was at the Dayton Ham Fest, which for me in northern New Jersey was just an 8-hour drive. So you go just because you could, and it was if you've never been to one of those big ham fests, it's just a lot of fun. There were a lot of SOTA people there, so you would meet SOTA people that you would never ever meet. And my good friend KT5X Fred, who got WS0TA as a vanity call. So he and John K1JD formed a club and got a club called WS0TA. And And my eyes got real big, and I said, how cool would that be? And so I walked over to the ARRL booth at Dayton and said, hey, I'm interested in a club call. And she says, well, have you got a club? And I looked at Steve and I says, are we a club? And he says, you bet. So we kind of filled out the paperwork for the ARRL in their booth. The lady that was helping us was having a good time here, really entertained by Steve and goat stories, because they had heard about the goats.
I bet.
And so we formed the SOTA Club and filled out the paperwork for NS0TA as a club call. And she took it right there, got online, captured the call, and she says, you'll have your paperwork, in a few days from the FCC. And Steve and I were kind of looking at each other wide-eyed saying, how did this happen? And so that's the story behind NS0TA. And I only use it when I'm activating SOTA. So it's a SOTA only call. And so if you hear N-SOTA, I'm on in the activation zone, activating, and having a lot of fun. And
is there a friendly rivalry between the NS and the WS clubs?
Of course. Yeah, and I mean, in the NS0TA, much to Fred's chagrin, is so much more active.
I think I just heard a challenge.
Well, and Fred started using WS0TA more often now, just because I keep ribbing him.
Yeah.
And I used to go down and Fred, I don't know how well you know Fred, but he's very competitive.
Just emailed him recently because I learned that he's a bit of a trail runner, and
Yep.
I've been trying to run a bit and possibly get into that in SOTAs to speed up my time to and from the summits to get back home.
Yeah, he's a very competitive gentleman, and been a ham all his life, and he has puts on a very competitive QRP field day site. I think it's under W5YG or something, but they are winners in their category and sometimes compete with the 100-watt stations.
Wow.
And so he's invited me down a couple of times. I come down and operate field day with him. It's always first class, big antennas. He puts up Moxon 2-element antennas for every band. And so very competitive, CW only, so it's contest style, CW only. And so Fred and I are good friends. And K1JD, who used to be an East Coast Massachusetts guy, he and I, when he heard I was from New Jersey, he says, oh, kinship. And so we're good friends. And then I grew up, I was born in New Mexico. So I kind of have a family kinship to that Albuquerque area. So,
yeah, beautiful area. So I would love to get down there as well.
Yeah.
Another place to go explore.
Yeah, outside of fire season, it's great.
Yeah, like most places.
Yeah, unfortunately in the Northwest, now, September's fire season.
Guy, being a 2-time GOAT and 452 activations and counting, any piece of advice or tip, people trying to get into summits on the air as an activator or a chaser, but a bit more so on the activation side. What's a good pro tip that you've learned on the summits?
I mean, the hardest thing for new SOTA activators is that first step. And so I really encourage existing SOTA activators that if you've got somebody that's kind of interested, invite them along with you and just take them with you. You say, no obligation, just come and hike with me and see how we do it and see what's going on. Because that first step for somebody that doesn't know field activation, it can be kind of intimidating for new people. So, existing chasers who want to get more active, team up, with an activator and let them know and just say, hey, this is my first time mile. I don't want a 3,000 foot elevation gain over 3 miles.
Yeah.
Make
it fun.
Make it fun. and then as the activator, do everything you can to make it fun. Including food and coffee, and a good hike to a beautiful location. And then, if he's part of a hiking family, invite the family so they can not only enjoy the beautiful site you're taking them to, but they get a chance to see what ham radio is all about from the field. And that's just key, to show somebody that's a potential activator a PowerPoint presentation and say, go to it. It just isn't going to work.
No, I think you're onto something there. Yeah, some of my best memories on a summit is with my kids that are with me.
Yep.
They'll entertain me a little bit. I've had my youngest son get on the air a couple times. He doesn't have his license or anything, but then he gets bored and he'll go play around the mountain, and we'll do geocaching or different things like that. But it was some of my favorite activations were with my kids with me.
And and that's the real attractive thing for a lot of folks. Is don't make it a solitary activity, but make it a companion or family activity. It makes it more enjoyable for the activator. In addition, I haven't even talked about this. In addition, I do a lot of volunteer wilderness ranger volunteering with my local Forest Service. In my case, it's Gifford Pinchot National Forest. And, it just so happens in the Gifford Pinchot, we've got about 20 SOTA peaks. So I can combine ham radio with my public engagement activities of patrolling in the wilderness areas. A lot of those are overnights, just because it takes a day to hike in. So there's a lot of opportunity that I have to teach. People ask, well, what are all these radios? And I say, well, I'm a ham radio operator. And I said, in addition to my Forest Service radio, I have this little handheld radio. And they say, well, okay, how far can you talk to it? I said, I was talking with a guy 100 miles away this morning. And their eyes are real big. So it opens up another world of what is ham radio to people that might not come across it any other way. So there's the public service aspect, and then there's also the education. You say, well, if you've got a family orientation, it's a really easy way to stay in touch with somebody that might be back at your base camp and you're out hiking for the day. Mm-hmm. And people kind of get it then. I've also...
I think that's great, finding ways to be a good ambassador for those folks that find the courage to come ask, what are you doing with all these wires on the summit or this peak? So that's great.
You had asked me one question too, is there anything that we could do to improve SOTA? And I've been a proponent so anyway, let me back up. I kind of stepped away from being on the SOTA management team in 2017, 2018. I think 2018, when I started doing more Forest Service activities and just being totally captivated with that. I just didn't have time, or didn't want to take time. I wanted to spend more time with the Forest Service. But I've been a real proponent trying to encourage the SOTA management team to revisit this winter bonus situation. Winter bonuses, as you know, are assigned association-wide. And there's just too many inconsistencies. So like in the Pacific Northwest, I'll take Washington as an example. Winter bonus ends today. A lot of our peaks are not accessible because they're snow covered until June. Which doesn't make sense. So I mean, if the winter bonus is supposed to compensate an activator for difficult winter conditions, then we should expand the scope of the winter bonus. And the easy way, and then of course they'd ask me, say, well, how would you do that? And I said, well, make your winter bonus region by region, not association by association. So in Washington, we've got about 6, 7 regions that are along the Cascades, and they won't become snow-free hiking until June. Some of them not until July. Well, for those regions, expand the winter bonus to 6 months and make it fair. Whereas you get over into eastern Washington, where the ground elevation is so much higher, you got a walk up because of the way the banding works. You got a walk up 500-foot elevation gain, 4-point that's in winter bonus.
Yeah.
And it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, we have a similar thing here in Montana, but seasonal. We didn't get a good dump of snow until mid to late December.
Yeah.
So I was able to get out to a lot of places I would not have gotten out to in the first couple of weeks in December. But yeah, I don't think you're not going to get a flood of people that are going to go out. If we pushed it to 6 months, but still encourage some folks to maybe think about not waiting until the trails are totally clear. Let me keep the snowshoes handy and get out and go play radio.
Exactly. I mean, in a lot of those peaks, even though the higher elevations might still be snow covered, the trailheads are accessible. The roads are clear, so you can snowshoe or cross country ski or snowmobile or whatever, hike into these locations when the weather's good and take advantage of the winter bonus. The other side of that coin is those elevations like in eastern Washington that you leave the winter bonus as it is and kind of adapt the winter bonus to the geography associated with the region as opposed to the entire association.
Yeah, interesting.
There would be of course a lot of work. You'd have to revisit, but it wouldn't. The one thing that I've learned, people would say, okay, well, can you correct the banding problem that some associations have? And generally the answer is no, because the one thing that the SOTA MT has learned is that you can give points to activators, but you can never, ever, don't even think about taking points away.
Right? Yeah.
I mean, and they learned that lesson, in Europe. And so to correct the banding problem that is in Arizona, there's no way you can correct it. But you can correct the bonus period without taking points away.
Yeah, I'm fine. I'm settled with that. Especially in Hawaii, there's some 4-pointers that seem like 10-pointers, and then here in Montana, there's some 2-pointers that feel like 6-pointers, just because of the steepness and elevation gain over a short period. But it is what it is. So the 2-pointers that I get, I feel like I earned those winter bonus points for sure, and then some.
Yeah, I mean, and the typical question I would get was, why don't you implement a difficulty rating? Which the climbing community, for instance, has a difficulty rating, but boy, is it fraught with problems. A lot of ill will. Some people think this is a 5, others think it's a 6, and then a lot of route issues. So like Mount Rainier, for instance, has a dozen different routes with different difficulties. So that means you got to have a different difficulty rating for the route you took within SOTA. Impossible.
Yeah, I think keeping it simple, silly, the KISS simple principle is probably the best to stick with.
Yeah. And I said that's kind of why we don't have a difficulty rating within the SOTA system is first of all, who would administer it, and then second of all, who would implement it, and then who's going to take care of all the arguments.
No thanks.
Yeah. So, but a regional where you adapted some of the winter bonus, based on regions, is doable. It would be more work though.
Any concluding message, a word of encouragement for those interested in advancing their SOTA journey?
Well, other than the obvious, just get out and do it. If you're interested in SOTA and want to get more involved, get with a local activator and go on outings, activations with them, kind of see what it's all about. Most new people carry way too much equipment. The batteries are way too big. Think they have to run 50 watts. QRP, are you kidding me? 5 watts? The perception is that it doesn't work, and that's just totally false.
Yeah, your log, my log, our logbooks tell otherwise. 5 to 8 watts sideband, you can make a lot of contacts.
And the whole key is, this is not a competitive program. It's a fun program, and your goal, first of all, is to make sure you're having fun. And so, that's how I look at it. If I'm having fun, then I'll be back and I'll want to do it again. If I'm not having fun, I'll find something else to do that is fun. And then it's community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love our SOTA community, seeing the same call signs in the log. And to be the opportunity today to be able to meet you and doing highball QSO from over the internet, but I love the SOTA community. I think it's just very giving and inclusive and just supportive.
Yeah, and I think it's the best of what ham radio is. I think it's a perfect illustration of what the ham radio community goals are. And we play a small part, but a lot of people have heard of us.
Yeah.
So thanks, Alan.
Yeah, Guy, if would it be okay if somebody wanted to reach out to you? What's the best way to get in contact with you if they want to learn more about you, your story, or just how to get involved with SOTA?
My QRP or QRZ
the
address.
QRZ site?
Yeah, the QRZ address is an easy way to get a hold of me. That comes right into my ham radio email address, and and I'll respond as much as I can or help people as much as I can.
Great. Guy, I really appreciate your time today, and thank you so much. A Sherpa Award winner himself, with all of your support through SOTA over the years. Thank you for everything, and it's been great. True honor to meet you and learn about your story. So hope to get you in the log again very soon, and hopefully maybe a summit.
Yep. In fact, I'll be out tomorrow morning with my 3-element 10-meter Yagi. Hope to work you tomorrow morning. I see you're planning to be out.
Let's see if I can get it done.
We'll look for it.
Yeah.
Thanks, Al. Appreciate this effort.
All right. Take care.
You bet. Bye now.
That does it for today's episode, everyone. If you think someone else might enjoy this conversation, please pass it on. And if you know anyone that might enjoy SOTA, I humbly ask you to help them get involved, as the more people we have active, the more fun we all can enjoy in this niche of ham radio. Thank you all for listening. This is KH7AL. Until next time, safe hiking, happy chasing, and 73.